The incident at Morales demonstrated multiple ethical issues. The engineer chose cheaper parts to build the plant, such as pipes, pipe connectors, and sensors to cut cost. This ethical issue ended up costing lives. The company also failed to notify clients and coworkers when decisions had to be made. When the engineer Fred came forward with issues, upper management shut him down, citing cost concerns, forcing him to buy cheaper parts, leading to the incident. The characters in this film continually show no remorse for safety, health, and environmental regulations. In my opinion, the most important ethical issue is management shutting down any concerns engineers had and expected them to inform them before anyone else. Had this not happened, I believe the engineer could have bought the parts he needed and the entire situation could have been avoided. The second most important ethical issue to me was that the engineer Fred actually going along with it and putting his name on the project. Fred knew that the pipes, pipe connectors, and sensors he was buying couldn't withstand the heat and would eventually fail, leading to a possible loss of life. The final important ethical issue is their lack of regard for the environment. They decided to build in Mexico because of more lenient regulations, but at one point were willing to poison the people's water by not properly lining the holding pond. Luckily, the engineer convinced management to fix this. Unfortunately, they didn't listen to anything else they said, which resulted in an even bigger environmental hazard. From Fred's perspective, Fred is faced with many ethical issues in this situation. He is tasked with designing and building a new plant with a strict time frame and reduced budget, all while receiving pressure from FOST. The specific ethical issues include choosing a more expensive control system because of the relationship between FOST and Lutz, forcing Fred to cut corners elsewhere. Being a chemical plant, it is expected that there be hazardous waste as a byproduct of the chemical process, and it should be handled and contained safely, whether environmental regulations call for it or not. Finally, this process of manufacturing the new paint thinner requires very high temperatures and pressures. That being said, when building the manufacturing process, the pipes and connections need to safely be able to handle these conditions. In conclusion, he was pushed to choose interpersonal relationships over saving money where they could have on the controllers. He chose to save money on the evaporation ponds over protecting the local environment. Finally, he reduced construction costs by using stainless steel pipes over a high-pressure alloy. Fred should have always considered the safety and well-being of the process, workers, public, and the environment. As an engineer, you should always look towards the engineering code of ethics when struggling with making decisions. Now from Wally's perspective. The major ethical issue regarding Wally would be the first rule from the NSPE Code of Ethics for Engineers. This rule states that engineers shall hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. Regarding Wally in specific, he chose to place saving money over the safety and welfare of others. I feel that his motivation for this one rule was to protect himself from the backlash of his employer. Having Fred come to Wally first with any problems gives Wally the chance to offer input that he feels is right and keep Fred from going over his head with the issue. In Wally's case, I feel that this rule is simply unethical with the way that he uses it. He uses it to persuade Fred to go with a cheaper and more unsafe solution to any problem that they come across. When Fred was looking into the ethical issues regarding the toxic waste, he made the right call to bring up the issue to the main boss that these chemicals could potentially harm the local drinking water. If I was Wally, I would have taken a completely different approach to the decision he made. As an engineer, it is our top priority to put the safety of others before everything else. I personally would have went with the higher quality pipes, brackets, and programs that are used throughout the plant, although they are more expensive. This reduces the risk of failure and will more than likely save money down the road, as it will not be necessary to replace them as often. Overall, I feel that Wally was unethical in his approach on how to manufacture the chemical plant. Finally, the responsibility perspective. If the authority and funding was available in order to improve the culture of the company, changes such as changing or improving the current code of ethics of the company should be considered. Specifically, in the Morales incident, instead of taking the cheaper route in order to improve safety, it would be better to use more expensive yet more reliable parts to use in the engineering design of the plant. In this process of changing the company policy in the event of acquired authority, it would be important to involve the board of directors to make sure the best interests of the company are being considered by more than a single person gifted with authority. It would also be important to get input from lower level managers and even possible regular employees to completely understand how everyone in the company feels about how the company currently operates on its current policies and see where there can be improvement. The new and improved company policies would be communicated to employees by a company meeting with the board of directors and managers, to the clients by personal email including an updated company policy sheet, and if necessary to the public by announcement through a trusted media source.